Scott Tibbetts, who's the international space entrepreneur and mentor.
And I've got actually the one that goes way back. This is made out of hardware store parts. It's a copper tube. It's filled with wax, not too different than candle wax. And it turns out that when wax melts, it expands a lot. And if you put that into a tube with a seal, it creates very high pressures. And if you put a rod here and you heat this up, the rod comes out very slowly, but with a lot of force. So I could put this in a cup of hot water and I could lift 40 pounds, the weight of a small child. To be famous wouldn't be necessarily a good thing, because the stuff that we made a difference of whether spacecraft worked or not. And if our stuff never worked, there'd be a headline in a new paper that said, NASA trusts small company in Colorado, spacecraft lost, $1.5 billion down the toilet. What was NASA thinking? And that would be a large telescope the size of Hubble. And we built the motor to open the cover so it could see. And during testing at the very end, just before launch, our motor had failed and the cover didn't open. And I remember this vividly because they're all leaning in over my head technician, Scott Christensen, who was opening the top of this. And I realized that whatever was exposed inside was going to be a turn of the entrepreneurial card. Our company was either going to succeed or fail based on what was inside there. But before I can show you what's inside this, I need to go back 10 years and tell you how we got to this place. So I need somebody to take care of this for me for the next 5 minutes or so. Bueller? Yeah, right there. Okay. Okay, this is flight hardware. But every once in a while, entrepreneurial companies come from a very interesting invention, something too cool to not find a use for. And we were using this in water heaters, and I said to my partner, you know, there's got to be a better use for this. And I said, if I find another use for this, would we be partners? And Daryl said, sure. Shook my hand, and I went off salary and started looking for a use. I called medical companies, I called the Army, and then I called NASA. Then I just cold called NASA with this thing. And what I did was I IH-5055. This is the first paraffin actuator used in space. There are now probably 5,000 of these on spacecraft. It has become the way that you deploy things on spacecraft, and they now sell for $20,000. So that's it. And as soon as I had my first sale, this is what we looked like when we were about 30 people. And the thing to look at is the smiles. These aren't people that are rocket scientists. These are people that we can't believe we're being allowed to build spaceflight hardware. Atomic Comet is what NASA calls it. It's a 707 they've taken all the seats out of, and you test your hardware on this, because this is the only way you can be in zero gravity on Earth. And so you go in this plane, you take off from Houston, you go out over the Gulf, and 40 times in a row, the plane goes from 30,000 feet to 20,000. It's all about people having fun on this. Here's Matt doing what's called a Superman, which is an amazing experience to go from the back to the front of a plane. And then what they do is, here's one of the flight directors, they just squirt water in your eyes, and it becomes like goggles. You open your eyes, it's like you're underwater. So we were serious about fun. So it's 10 years later, and Scott has this, and he leans over, he unscrews it, everybody's looking in, and he pulls off the top, and everybody peers in simultaneously. And it looked like a Swiss watch inside. It was beautiful. The colors that it was anodized, it was just extraordinary. And all these NASA people, you could feel tangibly this feeling of them going, our hardware doesn't look like that. It can't possibly be this hardware. And our company changed from that point. We became legendary for the kind of hardware. And we'd been growing like this, and then we started growing like that. And everybody wanted to work with us. And the company exploded. And then had to start. And what happened was some of our customers started saying, well, maybe you could do this for this big telescope called Chandra. And here's what Chandra looked like. That cover had to be opened. And they came to us to open that cover with wax. And that led to us building this motor with wax. It's a friend. We're going to Mars. I just got out of a meeting. We got a big problem. JPL, we decided to build the motors for the Mars rovers. But they're not working out. And we're going to miss the launch window. And they've decided you're the only solution, your company. And you're going to get a call tomorrow. And I'm letting you know, money's no object. You're being asked to save NASA's ass. When it launched, and when it arrived at Mars 8 months later, there was 100 of us in the company. We went to a hotel to watch this happen because there was 56 motors that had to operate perfectly of ours, and if they didn't operate, the Mars mission would be lost, and maybe the whole Mars program would be lost. This is called 7 minutes of hell. NASA calls it this because there's hundreds of things that could go wrong, and everyone has to go right. And if anyone goes wrong, you're not going to be on Mars. So we are all on the edge of our seats because we're about to find out what happens, and then the feed goes dead. You see that's moving here? These are the motors we made in Boulder, Colorado with those full-sleeve technicians. All of this has to open. All of it has to work. And it's anthropomorphic. I mean, you can't help but look at this thing and think of it as some creature that we sent to another planet, not to, claim the ground. Being a part of it, but then I noticed something. This little smudge right here. And so I clicked in, and it was our logo. And this is the best piece of product placement ever. This beats the heck out of a Coke can in a, Ted Lasso film. Went back into the company the next day, brought this picture in, showed it to him, said, our logo's on Mars, and this hand raises from the back. Kyle Hickey, one of our designers, he says, I know. We all whip around. Huh? He says, oh yeah, 2 years ago, I had to design this thing. I was drawing it up. I had to figure out where the logo should go. So I got on the NASA website, saw where the camera's going to look, and put the logo there. Yeah, that is exactly what the room did. That is exactly what the room did. Family isn't always the good stuff. Kurt was an engineer of ours. He went out on a run at noon. And he's about 45 years old. And his wife called me at 1 in the morning, another call, and said Kurt never got home from work. We got in our cars, me and Carla, and started driving around Boulder. And 9 the next morning, Carla brought her kids to our company for safekeeping. And I sat with them in the conference room, and I got the call at 9:30 that Kurt had been found at the top of a trail in Boulder. He'd had a heart attack, and he died. People could contribute their vacation, and we would match that with cash. So if somebody put in 2 weeks of vacation, we'd turn it into money, and then the company would match it for cash. And a week later, we had the kids come in, and we gave the mom a check for $50,000. So this was on the spacecraft. You can imagine what the technicians thought as they went and saw it and took a look at it. The two kids, put their little thing on there, the Carla did, and the mother. And they got to say something to their dad in heaven and do it for real. And boy, does that bring you together as a family, dealing with grief in the right way. And in the 1990s, he was the first person to grow crops in space. He grew potatoes. Hugely proud of that. I go to see The Martian having no idea what the movie's about. And some of you know where I'm going. I'm watching this. And Matt Damon is saved by potatoes growing in space. And I watch this, and this is my dad's research. And you can imagine what that was like for me. My God, you know, my dad's legacy. And then you get halfway through the movie, he goes to the other side of the Mars. And do you remember he unburied a rover and used the motor? Guess who made that motor? Our company. So my dad saved Matt Damon's life at the one side of Mars. I saved his life on the other side of Mars. Thank you very much.